since I have had 2 psychotic breaks, not a single person from Netflix from that show have even contacted me or emailed me to ask me if I'm okay.
If you play Yakira, then you play Marina Thompson, then who is Ruby Walker?
Right. That's something that I've kind of been, actively trying to explore and understand. I mean, I'm not even that young. I thought I'd lose my dad in my 40s, and when I lost him when I was 26, and I was like, oh my God, it was a really tormenting place for me to be, because my character was like very alienated, very ostracized. I want to be independent. I want to be perceived as strong. No one really wants to be looked at as being vulnerable.
That's amazing. Just to move it on to a lighter note. Want to talk, just taking a little bit of a turn to something a bit more personal. You've talked about your work with Mind.
Yeah.
You also work with the Cruse Bereavement Support Trust.
Yeah.
Just if you don't mind opening up a little bit about it, just because I think it could really help people. Could you tell us a little bit about your personal journey with it, why you feel it's important, and what the trust does to help people?
Okay, so I stumbled across Cruse Bereavement Support when my father passed away in January this year, really suddenly.
I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. These things happen. So yeah, that's what happened. I looked up sort of bereavement support because Father's Day was coming around, and I wanted to support an organisation that does good things to do with bereavement.
Did they help you? Did you go to them for that, or did you just?
Yeah, they have a lot of information and resources and stories and stuff on their website. To help you process grief and understand that you're not alone. And then they also have a interesting, like a very particular focus on supporting young people that have experienced grief. I mean, I'm not even that young. I thought I'd lose my dad in my 40s, and when I lost him when I was 26, and I was like, oh my God. But then I was thinking, I was at school with kids and stuff, and we're like 12 years old, and there's people, a girl and 12 years old, and she'd lost her dad, and I didn't have any sort of concept of like what she was experiencing and what she was going through. Like, I knew obviously it was very sad, but I didn't have any sort of real kind of like understanding.
Kind of don't realise it until it happens to you.
Yeah. And how it hit me at 26, I was thinking, my God, like how is, kids like go through this? It's awful, right?
I think when you're 12, like a father figure is so central to your upbringing. So then not to have that, I think, but it's not to detract obviously from losing a father at 26, but when you're 12, I feel you're more emotionally mature as well around those kind of things.
Yeah. It's really hard. And so they just look like a really great organization. And then they also have like phone lines with grief specialists where you can call up and you can talk to somebody about your grief and process it with somebody that's been through it. So yeah, that's why I supported Cruse, and I reached out to them and I raised a little bit of money for them. I mean, not like a massive amount, but it's a lifelong relationship that I have with them now. I raised as much as I could at the time. And then I was at the Pride of Scotland Awards, and I met Irvine Welsh, who's the writer, creator of Trainspotting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And okay. I was talking to him about what I've been up to, and I mentioned Cruse, and he told me that Cruse pretty much saved his mother's life when she was going through grief and using the phone lines. And that really solidified in me, like, I'm with the right people here, and I'm supporting the right organization.
I think mental health awareness, we touched on it at the beginning of the episode, but I think despite the fact that it's 2023, there's so much stigma around it still. And people are because there's so many different mental health issues, you can't just group it. Like, I say mental health, but I'm going against my own views in a way, because I don't think you can group it all under an umbrella term mental health. There's so many issues there, because bereavement and grief, for example, is such a different feeling to, feeling a sense of identity issues. So identity issues, or having an issue with social situations where you can't really make friends. So mental health can be grouped in so many different categories, especially once you bring in issues like bipolar and schizophrenia into this mix.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's an interesting. It's a hard thing to sort of navigate, because it is very individual. Everybody has a different perspective, a different worldview, a different trauma, a different type of support, diagnoses. Yeah, and I think when we think about mental health in like the mainstream, we often think about depression and anxiety and panic attacks and things that we can sort of deal with. We don't often really delve into or talk about like psychosis or things of that nature, because that is uncomfortable. I mean, I think everybody's biggest fear is going crazy. I think if we were all to really, really ask ourselves what we wouldn't, I mean, like a lot of us, we would rather die. Before I went crazy, I would rather die than go nuts.
I think it's like a lack of control there.
Yeah, it's a lack of control, a lack of independence, and also this sort of like fear of being pitied and having people worry about you and concerned about you. That is horrible. I want to be independent. I want to be perceived as strong. No one really wants to be looked at as being vulnerable.
Yeah, it reminds me, we had a mental health advocate. He has bipolar. I think it's type 1, so psychosis is included in that.
Yeah.
And he was talking about the way that we try and break down mental health stigma at the moment. It's like, oh, it's okay to be sad kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he said it's all well and good saying, oh, it's okay for your friend to be depressed. But when they have psychosis, and he was quite obviously, he was quite like an over-the-top example, but he was like, when you think there's a dragon in the room and you're throwing Coke cans at it, suddenly everyone's like, get my kids the fuck away from this person, like kind of thing. And I think it's like, it's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a massive difference. Yeah. I mean, it's okay to be sad, but it's okay. It's not okay to think there's a dragon.
I mean, there's levels to it. I was wondering, we touched a little bit on your experience with it, but are you doing better now? Are things improving, would you say?
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel, I believe I'm firmly, I don't know what a weird question. I mean, like, because it's a spectrum, isn't it? Like,
it is a spectrum.
For me, like my psycho, I haven't spoken about this publicly, but for me, I'd go to like Nazi universes. Like I would just see, the Third Reich and everything. Like I would be like, really quite dark, like genuinely really quite scary, right?
Okay, wow.
And my friends sort of joke about, going, Ruby, do you remember when you thought you were Anne Frank? Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
I know.
So
that's how scary
intense.
And dark it was. Like, and because it was like during like the first lockdown and stuff.
Yeah.
And this is sort of how I was thinking. And then I couldn't understand, why is everybody wearing masks? Why is there a man in a visor with goggles on and sheets everywhere, and it was so clinical and detached, and it was just, you have to do this and these procedures we have to follow, but with no explanation. I couldn't get my mind around it. I forgot the original question.
If you're doing better now.
If I'm doing better now, well, yes, because I'm not in some sort of Nazi video game.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if I'm to compare it to me at my absolute worst, then I would say that I am doing better now. But that doesn't mean that, I don't have like moments of like, especially like grief, like extreme grief and sadness. I don't know if I'm doing better in that regard, but at least I'm in this shared reality that I believe we all hold.
Yeah, that's amazing.